Don't lie. Don't let me interrupt.
Don't what?
I mean, we're live.
No, so anyway. Yeah, I'll talk to you about the, your years at Honda a little bit, something like that. Because you were there, what, a couple of years? 78, 77, 78?
Yeah.
So what else you got going on with this bead blaster thing now? What do you bead blasting?
You know, just parts to, clean up put them back on the bike, but, I just couldn't even see a thing, so I hooked up a little vacuum cleaner that's, it's a house one, but it's a little one. I just hooked it up and then crank it on and it helped a tiny bit, but I'm going, I can't even see what I'm doing, so that's not good. So I knew I had to come up with something else, but when you buy it, they don't tell you that.
Right. And it's also, for the fittings, you have to find like shop vac stuff, and which they do sell, by the way. In Lowe's, they do sell shop vac parts.
Yeah.
So,
But you can't have a shop vac motor because it'll blow up.
it's only going to last a little while. And I had like a rigid, one of those wet or dry, a really good one.
Yeah.
It would depend, I guess, on if you had a better filter before the stuff gets to it, I guess that's why they make them that way, because it almost drops
Yeah.
before. So,
Okay.
all right. I got a little champagne ready for afterward, too. Gotta have a little something. Good evening, everyone. I'm Joe Abadi, and you're watching Vintage Motocross Q&A. Merry Christmas to everyone. I want to thank Jordan and Chelsea, Susie, everyone who helps me put the show together every week, and of course, our audience. Thank you for joining us. And as you know, tonight we will be giving away an '83 Honda CR250. I'm sure a lot of you are watching just to see that, and we're going to be bringing that to you in just a little while. But right now, I think we're going to bring in our special guest who's going to be picking the tickets right now. Oh, I'm sorry, he's not going to come in yet? We're going to go to the starting line. Starting line is brought to you, of course, by Motion Pro. I'll tell you a little bit about what's going on with the show. The next time, try this segment. We'll have some masking tips for you, give you a real professional paint job at home. Moto Showcase got a nice Honda that was sent in by Phil Agapio. It's a little interesting things going on with this bike. I'll tell you all about it. Here's the problem: rusty bearings, bearing grease, how to repair them or how to replace them. We'll talk more about that a little bit later. What's it worth? Got a nice Honda coming up. We'll tell you more about that. 522 project continues. Tonight, I'm going to show you something that I did with the lower fork legs. You'll be able to do on some of your aluminum parts too. And of course, the bike giveaway. Yeah, we are giving away a 1983 Honda CR250 tonight, and I have a very special guest, a good friend, who's going to be picking the ticket a little bit later on in the show, but I'd like to chat with him for just a moment. Of course, I'm talking about 1982 World Champion Brad Lackey. Brad, thanks for joining me.
Hi, Joe. Everything good?
Everything is really, really great. Merry Christmas to you.
Merry Christmas. You're doing that. You're giving away a great Christmas present here.
Yeah, somebody's going to have a real very Merry Christmas tonight. And while we're looking at that Honda, I'd like to talk to you for a second about your years with Honda. No matter who I've ever interviewed or talked to in the past, it always seems that Honda was one of their favorite bikes. Tell me about your years with Honda and what you loved about them.
I was a factory rider in 77 and 78 and the 500 GPs. And I did have a production 250 during that time to ride international races and stuff. And still to this day, out of all the production bikes I had, that Honda 250 was far superior to anything. Right out of the crate, I put some Fox shocks on it, and raced international races against all the top guys on their factory bikes, and I could beat them on most occasions just because the bike worked so well.
I remember you telling me about that bike, that you actually had it on a little trailer and you'd go through Europe during the week or when there wasn't a GP, and you would ride it and you did really well on it.
Yeah, it was bulletproof and handled great, and it was fast enough a production bike to race against factory bikes. So it was, like I said, probably the best production bike they made by far, especially at that time. Maybe nowadays stuff's that good, but I haven't been on anything modern in a while.
Yeah. And, well, you didn't really spend any time at Honda during the 80s. You were, of course, on Kawasaki there for a while, as well as Suzuki. So let me ask you this, though. While we're talking about giving this bike away, have you ever been asked to do a drawing before? Have you ever picked a winning ticket?
I have one time at the Magoo race, if anybody remembers that. We were trying to get support and some money for Danny Chandler, and we had a Mako donated a bike, and we had a giveaway there. And I think he bought the tickets for that, so Magoo got the money. And it was a great success, and lucky guy got a brand new Mako.
Okay. Well, Brad, we're going to get on with the rest of the show for right now. We'll have you back in the studio a little bit later on, and we'll pick that winning ticket.
All right, Joe.
Thanks, Brad.
Hopefully it's nobody I know.
I hope not. Okay. Jordan, what do we got coming up next? Oh, if you're watching the show either on Facebook or on YouTube, please share it. And don't forget, on our YouTube channel, you can go and subscribe. You can get alerts. You'll find out when we're live on YouTube as well. And you can see all of our shows there, all the Vintage Motocross Q&A shows, all of our interviews that we've done on Vintage Motocross Radio. So be sure to tune in to YouTube. You could also watch the show on your big screen TV in HD, VMXQ&A. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel. As always, I want to thank all of our sponsors, Motion Pro, AMSOIL, Full Circle Racing, Vintco, Preston Petty Products, and Northwest Mako CZ. I want to thank my friend Lanny J, too, who does a great job on the aluminum tanks for the Bultacos, the CZs, Makos, and so much more. We'll be taking a look at some of his work a little bit later on. This week's Next Time Try This segment is brought to you by Vintco. Keep the ride going. Today I want to talk to you about seal surfaces, where your oil seals sit, maybe in the side of a clutch cover, through your shift shaft. There's other places on the bike. I want to tell you how to prepare that area before you paint it. Something I want to mention here, and we'll talk more about it later, is powder coating. I don't advise you powder coat engine parts, but if you decide you want to do that, make sure you tell whoever's powder coating your part to mask off that seal area. Here's two examples of an area where you should really use some tape to protect it, so your seal is going to fit in nice and snugly the way it originally should. Here's one area, like where the clutch actuator goes in. Here's another area where the Kickstarter goes into this Suzuki clutch cover. I'm going to show you how I got that finished like that before I painted it. We're going to use this Honda cover as an example. And what you want to do is just take some tape, little painter's tape like this, and of course, make sure it's wide enough to go across the area that you're going to be masking, like this right here. I also cleaned this with some AMSOIL brake cleaner before I stuck this tape on here to be sure it would adhere. Now, what I have here is an X-Acto knife. I'm sure you all have one home. It has a very, very sharp blade in it. What you want to do is get right next to that area and just trace it around, nice and easy. And if it starts to either wrinkle a little bit or do anything weird, just move the knife to a different part, and you're going to cut out that circle just like that. That's going to be on the bottom of this seal surface area. So you take this away, and then you're going to put this little guy that you just cut out right down in here. I just go around it. Get it to stick down there. Now, it's a little trickier, but not too much trickier, to get it to stick to the side where you also want to protect it where your seal is going to sit. You don't want to try and get a full piece of tape to go all the way around this thing. It's going to stick onto itself. It's not going to make it real easy for you to do. So what I do is I do half at a time. So I take a piece of tape that's this big, and I can stick it right to the side just like that. Then I take another piece, maybe just a little bit bigger, and I stick it on this side. Yes, you do overlap right there on the sides. I just push it against it a little bit, make sure it sticks. Then you do the same trick with your knife And there you have it. Now you're ready to prime and paint your part, and when you get done, when you remove your tape, you'll have a nice finish, just like this, where your seal is going to sit in there. And just as important as masking off the areas of where your oil seals go, it might be a good idea to mask off some areas like this if you're getting to repaint a head, especially where the spark plug sits down in the head. You don't want any paint there. I also advise you do this because too much paint or powder coating, which you shouldn't be doing anyway, could give a false reading when it comes to torquing the head. Now, how do I get those little circles down there just like that with that masking tape? It's very easy, and I'm going to show you exactly how to do it. You're going to start off with a clean piece of plastic just like this, and you're going to lay the tape. I use painter's tape because it's sticky, but doesn't leave any glue residue or anything behind, and I just stick it right on there just like this. Of course, I'm then going to find a washer like that, which happens to be the same size as the area I want to cover that I want to mask off. Do nothing more than carefully trace around the edge of the washer, and if I have 5 holes, well, maybe I want to make 5 of these little masking things, and if I have some other holes on there that I want to mask off, I'll use a different size washer and basically just do the same thing. I'll trace around it like that, then using an X-Acto knife just like this, making sure that you got a good sharp blade in there. Try and stay to the outside of the line with a nice even cut. All you do now, simply peel off this tape just like this, and you can place them wherever they have to go, like inside here. Then you're ready to paint it. You're not going to have any paint where you shouldn't have any paint. I want to thank Vinco for being a sponsor of this segment. Vinco, keep the ride going. In the Moto Showcase tonight, which is brought to you, of course, by Preston Petty Products, we take a look at a 1989 Honda CR125. It's called a Mike Kudrowski replica because, well, it's got a lot of great parts on it from HRC. The owner is Phil Agapio, and as Jordan goes through these pictures a little bit, I'll tell you what Phil says. Hope you are well, brother. Absolutely loving the show. I thought it would be good to give you some photos of my bike so you can show it in the Moto Showcase. It is an 89 Mike Kudrowski RC125 replica. It has lots of HRC parts on it, including that beautiful Bill's pipe. Mike signed the number plate for me at a Fast House Indian Dudes reunion party. Thank you for considering my bike for this segment of the show. Merry Christmas and Happy New Year to you. Thank you so much, Phil, for sending in the bike. It's a great picture of you and Mike Kudrowski there. And I have your address. We're going to be sending you a nice little gift compliments of Preston Petty Products. Phil Agapio, thanks once again for sending in that 1989 Honda CR125. Preston Petty Products, it's always like a holiday at Preston Petty. They've got so many great products, front number plates, fenders, grips, hats, and shirts. I want to thank Paul and Patty Standard for all they do throughout the year. Don't forget to visit Preston Petty Products online and on Facebook. They've got some great discounts there on some items, and we usually run a special here on our show every week. Sometimes it's 10% off. Last week it was free shipping on everything. So when you get a moment, please support our sponsor, Preston Petty Products. And here's the problem segment tonight, which is sponsored by Motion Pro. We'll take a look at a few problems, give a few answers, and see if we can all learn a little bit something tonight. Jordan, what do we got up first? Todd Bailey, love the show. Thanks for all your tips. What's the best way to prepare a pair of solid aluminum handlebars before having them anodized? Well, Todd, I saw the pictures of the bars, and what those are a set of Inter-Am bars. They were made in the 70s, and it's a solid aluminum bar. Now, you do have to, of course, strip them and polish them before sending them in for anodizing. What I would do, because you had some little nicks and scratches in there, I would recommend that you sand them. You could just use regular sandpaper and your hand, sand off all that aluminum, and while you're at it, you'll be able to work on some of those nicks and scratches. After you do that, the best way to do it is with a sisal wheel, which is this wheel you see right here. Sisal wheel and black emery compound. The sisal wheel has the consistency of twine, like a really, really hard twine like you'd see tying up packages. Maybe I'm showing my age by saying that. Nobody really uses it anymore, but twine, it's really hard. It's called a sisal wheel. Once you polish up that stripped handlebar, now that it's stripped with the anodizing and you've got a little nicks out, the sisal wheel and the black emery will really take out all the scratches and really give you a nice even finish all the way through. Afterward, if you want to get it a little bit shinier, you could always go over it with some red compound, like regular compound you use on a car, or white polishing compound. And with a really soft cloth, you can bring it up to a nice high luster, almost looking like chrome or polished aluminum. But the first thing you want to do is strip off that anodizing. You want to do that with sandpaper. You want to concentrate on some of those little nicks and scratches. Follow up with a sisal wheel, some black emery compound, and then red compound and a soft cloth. You're then ready to give it to your plater and have them re-anodized. Todd, thanks for the question. Rick Torres, Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas to you, Rick. I love a lot of off-road riding that involves water crossings and wet conditions in general. Can you spend a moment talking about waterproof grease, bearing maintenance in general? I can, Rick, and it's very interesting that you should bring this up. These aren't Rick's bearings. This happened to be a picture I found on the internet, but if you're not careful, you could wind up with some stuff like this. Now, the thing about waterproof grease, or any grease in general, is that there are different viscosities. People don't usually think about that when they're thinking about grease. But if you do a little research on it, especially if you go over to an AMSOIL website, you'll find out about the viscosity of grease. Now, here's the way you look at it. You could take a tractor trailer. It's carrying 40,000 pounds. It's got big bearings in there. Those bearings are carrying a lot of weight. They're going to get really hot. You want to use a much thicker viscosity grease. Why? Because that bearing, as it gets hot, the grease is going to melt a bit and it's going to liquefy. It's going to get around the bearings. It's going to give better protection, better lubrication. Now, on a motorcycle, or maybe something that goes a whole lot slower, it could be a golf cart, it could be a wheelbarrow. You want to use a much lighter viscosity grease when you grease the bearings in those types of equipment. For your bike, Rick, I would recommend you use waterproof grease from AMSOIL. They have a large selection of it, and you're going to find out that it works really, really well. I've been using it on bikes now since AMSOIL became a sponsor just about a year ago. I know a lot of other people that use it as well. AMSOIL, but check the viscosity. Do a little research on grease viscosity and find out what's right for you. Thanks for the question, Rick. Matt Alfonso, I was happy to find out that I didn't have to split the cases on my YZ to change the crank seals. I was quite unhappy to find out that the bearing, the seal was recessed in the case to the point that I can't prime out. Any advice? Matt, I know exactly what you're talking about. And yeah, you do get happy when you take off the clutch and you take off your primary and you take off the ignition, only to find out that those seals are sitting way down inside the case, especially on the Yamahas and a few other bikes as well. It seems archaic, but it's actually simple and it works perfectly. I've even seen it in some manuals. You could take a drywall screw or a real sharp screw, just like you see here, drive it slightly into that seal. Use a screwdriver. Don't use a screw gun. You don't need to get crazy with it. Put into that seal, and then with a pair of pliers or sometimes even your hands, you could pull it out and you can get that seal out. That's all it really, really is. There's no other way to get it out, and there's no need to split the cases to do that. Yes, if you split the cases and you're doing crank bearings, that's a different story. You can get them out much easier that way. But in a situation like your YZ, where you want to get it out from the ignition side just like that, you can get them out that way. And the same thing happens in a countershaft area as well. Those are a little tough to get out. Don't pry at them. Don't put a screwdriver in there or anything small to try and pry it out. You run the risk of cracking the case on the outside. Do like I suggested to you right here. Put some drywall screws in there, give it a yank, you'll get them out nice and clean. Matt, thanks for the question. We're going to take a commercial break right now. If you are watching on Facebook, which I'm sure you are, or on YouTube, please share it with your friends. We've got a big raffle coming up in just a little while. We'll take a commercial break. We'll be right back after this. Welcome to this week's 522 segment. It is, of course, brought to you by Full Circle Racing Limited. See my friend Tom McAllister for spokes, rims, lacing, and truing for modern and vintage bikes. For the next installment of the 522 project, we are talking about the front forks. We talked a little bit about it last week, and we are going to be using 1978 forks on the front of this project. Now, if you look at the pictures from the 1974-1975 season, you'll see the bike set up a couple of different ways, the real RC 125. Some of it had inline forks, others had offset axles like this. You'll see it in some pictures with black fork boots, some with no fork boots, some with red. The bike we're replicating has an offset axle just like this, and these lower forks that we took off in 1978 were a little rough to begin with, but we're going to cut to some tape that I made a little bit earlier today. We're going to show you how we got them to look just like this, and boy, do they look nice. As I was explaining earlier in the video, it doesn't matter what you do, whether you glass bead them, whether you vapor blast them, or whether you polish them, it's not going to remove any damage that is in a lower fork leg or any other part that you're going to put on a bike. Now, this lower leg happens to be an offset axle for this project, so I can't simply put it in a lathe and turn down an even amount across the whole leg. I can't do that because of the offset axle and the brake lug being in the way. So what we're going to do is we're going to begin with a little 180 grit sandpaper like this, P-rated paper, and I'm going to show you how to approach taking out this damaged area. You want to go lightly. When you're sanding, you don't want to create a flat spot or a low spot. Yes, you are going to create maybe a little difference in the level of the whole leg, but you're not going to see this when you're done, especially when you apply a brush finish. You want to go left to right, and then with the contour of the leg, go over it and go a little bit past where the damage actually is. Why am I saying go a little bit past? Because you're actually removing material from here, and you want to make it a little more even if it's possible. That's it for this week's segment of the 522 Project. Thank you, Tom McAllister and Full Circle Racing Limited, for all you do for our show. The little polishing segment at the end was actually supposed to be in the beginning. What I was trying to tell you was that if you polish out the part first, you'll see more damage. So there was a little bit of a mix-up on my part, maybe in the editing. The polishing part should have been in the beginning, and at the end, well, it shouldn't have been at the end. But as you can see, this fork leg came out really, really nicely. And if I did mention it, and I know I mentioned it, make sure you roll your hand over the fork leg when you're doing your sanding. Go past the damage a little bit because you're taking some of the material off. You just don't want to rub real hard in one little spot and create a flat spot there. So whether it's for lower fork legs, maybe it could even be on rear aluminum swing arms or whatever other part you might have on your bike that's made of aluminum. That's a great little way to get them all cleaned up, put a brush finish on them, have them looking really nice again. That segment, of course, is sponsored by Full Circle Racing Limited. Full Circle Racing Limited is still having a great little sale going on, free shipping on rims, spokes, and they've got rims and spokes available for most every popular bike from Honda, Yamaha, Suzuki, Kawasaki, CZ, and Husqvarna. And Tom McAllister's got some other great little services going on up there, including hub powder coating. He'll clean them, disassemble, he'll blast them, mask them, and powder coat them. Standard colors, just $50 a hub. And for $10 more, he'll do the brake plate too. If you request a special color, like other than gloss black or the satin finish, typically it's about $20 more, and it's well worth it. So get your hubs, put them in a box, send them up to Tom McAllister. You get back a brand new set of rims with beautiful spokes, laced and trued, ready to rock and roll. Tom McAllister and Full Circle Racing Limited, thank you so much for all you do here for us at Vintage Motocross Q&A. The What's It Worth segment is, of course, brought to you by AMSOIL. AMSOIL, the first in synthetics since 1973. To be sure to visit them on Facebook and online. 1978 Honda CR125 recently sold for $49.25 on eBay. I'm going to read to you a little bit about this bike while Jordan goes through the slides. It was in a collection. The bike had been restored to a high level, according to the description, with no aftermarket plastic. The motor was sent out. It was completely disassembled and rebuilt. Every bearing, seal, and bushing was replaced. You name it, no expense was spared. The frame was powder coated along with some pieces, and the rims were refinished as well. There were no cracks in them. All the nuts and bolts, all the correct rubber pieces were there. I just never took the time to really do the pipe on the bike. I will be willing to assist with shipping. I'm in the Baltimore area. Well, somebody thought this bike was a really great deal at $49.25, and I'll tell you, I thought it was too. Here's why I thought it was a good deal, and I'll be honest with you. At first, when I looked at it and I looked at the pipe and I saw that the hardware wasn't done, I thought it was a little stiff as far as $49.95 goes. But the rest of the bike really looked nice, and all the heavy lifting was done. Now, 77, 78 Hondas were not the most competitive bikes out there that year. Suzuki's and Yamahas were doing really, really well. But on an emotional buy, I think someone purchased this bike. They took a look at it and said, well, I could repaint the head, I can paint the cases, and the rest of the bike really looked really, really nice. So I think it's just a matter of a little hardware and maybe some paint, and somebody would have had a bike that is, well, completely restored and looking nice. Yes, the pipe is lacking, but I think with a little work there, someone will be able to fix the pipe too. So I think somebody reached a little more than most people would at $5,000 or $4,925 for this bike, but I understood why they did it. I think it's a really sharp looking bike, and I think the person was a little bit emotional about it, but that's the kind of guy you got to find some time to buy bikes like this. $49.25, 78 Honda CR125, which makes me think of another bike that we had on here just a couple of weeks ago. Had a 1975 KX125. The owner was Brian Stoley. Now, I had this bike in the Moto showcase, and I was talking to you about it, and I said that I had restored it, which I did. Everything I did on the bike, I did the same way I do a regular restoration, but by the customer's request. It had an aftermarket pipe. It had Fox gas shocks. It had Pro Taper race bars on it. Now, with the exception of those items, oh, and the chain guide. With the exception of those items, this would be a show bike if someone were to replace those items. They're simple bolt-on things, maybe a little difficult to find, but once you found them, you could bolt them on the bike and you'd have a show bike. The person who bought this bike is from Northern California, and that's exactly what he did. He paid $6,350 for it, and I helped him find a pipe, I helped him find some shocks, and that's exactly what he did. When you have someone who has experience with buying bikes in need of restoration, and they understand the time it takes to do it, the outside services, and the money involved, many of them go this route right here, where they'll spend a little bit more money on a KX like this, or go for $49.25 on that 1978 Honda you saw, and at that point, they've got a little mechanical work to do, maybe a little cosmetic work to do, but in the end, they're done in no time. They've basically spent the same amount of money, maybe even less in some occasions, but they saved a whole bunch of time by buying a bike like that, replacing those items, and getting themselves a show bike. So I just wanted to share that with you. $69.95 was the asking price, sold for $63.50. If you want to know more about the price of your bike, whether you're buying or selling, please visit us on Facebook at the Vintage Motocross Buyers and Sellers Price Guide page. I created this page about 6 years ago. There are over 16,000 members there, a lot of them with a lot of experience with auctions, restorations, buying, and selling. It's a great place for you to post your bike if you want to know more about the value of it, what you think you should sell it for, or if you're looking to purchase a bike and want to put a picture of it there and you want to know what the fair market value is of that bike. Vintage Motocross Buyers and Sellers Price Guide. In the product spotlight tonight, we have Northwest Mako CZ. Alan Brown doing a great job, helped us out with some parts, helped Jordan out with some parts for his race bike just last week. He's recently received the chain adjusters that people have been looking for some of the Makos. Also has a great assortment of hardware. If you go to their website, it is vast, it is big. Alan Brown has put together a really great website over there, and he not only has parts for your Makos and CZs, I see he offers some carburation things and air filters for Suzuki's, Yamahas, and a few other makes as well. So you can go over to NorthwestMakoCZ.com, or you can give Alan Brown a call at the number you see at the bottom of the screen. Alan Brown, thank you so much for all you do at Vintage Motocross Q&A. We really appreciate it, and we appreciate what you do at Northwest Mako CZ, which is in Pennsylvania, not in the great Northwest anymore. Oh, another one of my favorites, Lanny J, making some beautiful custom aluminum tanks for Bultacos, CZs, Makos. Starting price is just $395. Lanny J will build it any way you want. He'll make it a little bit narrower if you want, a little bit longer, a little bit higher. Here's a beautiful example of some of Lanny's work. There's a Bultaco tank right there. In the previous picture, we had a tank of a Hercules. This is something I really, really love. Lanny has taken the time to make a much thinner, much more comfortable to ride tank for your CZ. Look at the difference between that and the regular CZ tank there on the left. Lanny J, check him out on Facebook or at CMJ at Bell South. And look, here's another, this always impresses me from the time I saw it. This is a Husky tank that the guy had. It was dried out. It was very, very brittle. Couldn't really be repaired. He sent it to Lanny J. Lanny replaced it with one of his beautiful tanks. Look at that thing. I mean, absolutely spectacular. And with prices starting at just $395, I think Lanny J is the guy you want to talk to. Thanks, Lanny J, for all you do for us here. We're going to take a commercial break. Don't forget to keep sharing the show, whether you're on Facebook or on YouTube. And when we get back, well, I'll tell you more when we get back.
Classic and vintage dirt bikes are more than a hobby. It's not just about the ride. It's about the work that goes in. The work that keeps you connected to the ride. It's about bringing the bike back to life and doing it with your own hands. It's about the adrenaline and adventure. And when it comes to putting all the pieces together, only Vinco knows the bikes and parts the way you do. Vinco, keep the ride going.
This Week in Motocross History brought to you by Northwest Mako CZ. Jordan, what do we got up first? James Stewart. James Stewart was born into this world in 1985. He was born in Florida. He would eventually become the most, probably the fastest minicycle racer of all time. He did turn pro after his 16th birthday, just 13 days later. He entered his first pro race in 2002 at Anaheim in the 125 Supercross class. As a Kawasaki rider, he finished second, marking the first time in AMA Supercross history an African-American reaches the podium. 1 week later in San Diego, he becomes the first winner to do this. Day remains the youngest winner in the 125 250 Supercross division at just 16 years old. He was just a couple of days younger than Marty Tripes, who did it, of course, in the Super Bowl of motocross many, many years before James Stewart was born. James Stewart, happy birthday to you, and many, many more. In 1971, Gary and Dwayne Jones, the Jones brothers, they win their respective classes at the Oak Creek MX Park in Mojave, California. I remember speaking to Gary about this not too long ago, something a little unusual where it was on Christmas, just about, I think it was the day before, and it started to snow, which is a great thing on Christmas, but not such a great thing if you're racing a motocross race up in Mojave, California. Anyway, both Gary and Dwayne did win their respective classes on this day in 1971. Well, the time has come. After many, many months of talking about it, we are ready to give away the 1983 Honda CR250. And we're going to get right over there. Brad's got the microphone on hand. He's got the tickets in front of him. And we're just about ready to go, Brad. So if you want to just maybe reach into that box, shuffle them up a little bit if you can.
Joey, I can do that.
Want me to hold that mic while you shuffle them?
No, that's okay. I can do one-handed. This baby's in good shape, too.
Yeah.
Okay, big shuffle weight, first of all. Nothing on the sleeves. Well, that feels like a good one.
That feels like a good one?
That feels like a good one.
Okay. I'm more nervous probably than the people that are watching, huh? The winning number is number 665. 665.
Not
Let's take a
666.
look on the list. 665. Stand by. I got your number coming up. 665. 665 is Tony Bender. Tony Bender, you are the winner of the 1983 Honda CR250, number 665. Tony, if you are watching the show tonight or anybody knows Tony, have him call in. We would love to talk to him. Have him call us at area code 925-234-8181. That's 925-234-8181. Number 665, Tony Bender, you are the winner of the 1983 Honda CR250. Brad, thanks so much.
Congratulations, Tony. Merry Christmas. Here's the winning number.
There's the winning number, 665, Tony Bender. We've got a couple of quick announcements. Brad, stick around. Susie, we're going to have a little champagne toast, I think, with Jordan. And then we'll go on. Oh, yeah, the winner. Call in. If you're there, Tony Bender, 925-234-8181. Call in. You've won yourself a 1983 Honda CR 250.
Only the winner.
Only the winner. Don't just people start calling in. So, Jordan, what do we got in the announcements tonight? Oh, this weekend on Vintage Motocross Radio at 11 o'clock on Sunday morning, my guest will be David Dewhurst. David Dewhurst is an amazing photographer. He's recently been working on a new book that will be out shortly. It covers the golden era of motocross. He's interviewed so many people. In fact, Brad, I think he interviewed you.
Yeah, he was at the house not too long ago.
So, we're going to be talking to David Dewhurst on Sunday morning. I'll be interviewing him about the interviews he did. But I'm really looking forward to speaking to David, a very, very accomplished photographer, and now doing this great book on the golden age of motocross. The 2021 ARMA Southeast Regional schedule is out. You can go to the website and read all about it. You'll find out about all the races. I would tell you more about it, but the print is so small, and my eyes are not what they used to be. Jordan, next slide. 2021 ARMA Northwest racing schedule. I can't see this one any better, but there's a whole bunch of racing going on in the Northwest. You can go over to the website, the ARMA website. You'll see all the dates. They start in March. They end in October. Plenty of racing going on this coming season with ARMA and with a lot of other people too, we hope. T-shirts are still available from Vintage Motocross Q&A, just $21.99. The link is in the show description. You can get yourself a nice T-shirt like that. It's got the logo on the front, little autograph on the back, $21.99. Vintage Motocross Q&A T-shirt. Sponsorships are still available for Vintage Motocross Q&A. Get a hold of me. We will get you a sponsorship proposal package. You could be getting the same benefits from Vinco, Motion Pro, AMSOIL, Full Circle Racing, Preston Petty, and Northwest Mako CZ, not to mention my good friend Lanny J. This past week, possibly because of the bike giveaway, we reached over 27,000 people in 7 days. 27,000 people. We'll probably go well over 100,000 this month. So if you've got a business that you like to advertise here on Facebook, you've got a website, whatever it may be, it'd be really difficult for you to hit 27,000 people in 1 week. But I can help you do that. Get a hold of me, inbox me, I'll get you a sponsorship proposal package, and we'll put something together for you for the new year. Well, Jordan, I think that about wraps it up for the Christmas edition of Vintage Motocross Q&A. I'm going to go right back here for a second, Brad, and I'm going to get, well, let's put it this way. You got to be thirsty from doing the show. No?
Always.
And Susie and Jordan, I'd like you guys to come over here too, and hopefully don't look this way. I don't want to take anybody's eye out on Christmas, you know. And Tony Bender, we're still waiting for you to come in. Tony Bender, if you call in, 925-234-8181. If anybody knows Tony,
Thank you, Joe.
you're welcome. Have him give us a call. Tony Bender, if I don't hear from you in the next, I don't know, 15 minutes, I'm going to give the bike away to somebody
Yeah,
else.
I'll take it.
No, we're going to give Tony some time to call in and give him an opportunity to bask in the winning. That's what I got there. B-E-N-D-E-R. Jordan, come on in. Susie, come on into the picture.
Thank you.
Come over. I want you to be on the thing there. Merry Christmas, everyone, and Happy New Year. Thanks for watching Vintage Motocross Q&A. We'll see you next week. All right. What's your name? Tony Bender. That's where I know that name from. The Valachi papers with what's his name?
Christian, I'm thinking Tony doesn't want it.
Oh,
So how many viewers did you have?
what was the guy?